Saying no doesn't make you unkind. It makes you honest. The fear of rejection, of conflict, of disappointing others, it keeps good people stuck in a lifetime of false yeses. But here's the truth. If you can't say no, your yes means nothing. You don't have to be rude to be firm. You don't have to please everyone to be respected. The key is learning how to protect your time, your energy, and your integrity without burning bridges. And that starts today. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? You know, I've spent decades watching good people, brilliant people, trap themselves in a prison of their own making. A prison built not of steel and concrete, but of the simple word, yes. Let me tell you about Sarah, a bright executive I met in Detroit. Every time her phone rang, her shoulders would tense. Every email notification brought a flutter of anxiety. Why? Because she had trained everyone in her life to expect her availability. Her time wasn't her own anymore. She had become a hostage to other people's requests. This is what I call the trap of endless yes. It's a peculiar form of self-sabotage that masquerades as virtue. You see it everywhere, in offices, in homes, in relationships. Good people, kind people, capable people, slowly drowning in commitments they never wanted to make. Here's what most people don't understand. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you're not just making a simple choice. You're reinforcing a pattern. You're telling your mind, your body, and everyone around you that your time is less valuable than their comfort. You're setting a precedent that will demand more, and more of you until there's nothing left to give. I remember standing in front of a room of business leaders in New York. I asked them to write down how many times they said yes in the past week when they wanted to say no. The answers were staggering. 20 times, 30 times. One woman wrote, down 58 times. That's 58 moments of self-betrayal in a single week. But let me ask you this. What happens to a bank account when you keep withdrawing without making deposits? It depletes your energy, your time, your emotional well-being. These are currencies too. And many of you are running on empty because you've been making withdrawals for years. The most dangerous part? It becomes normal. The tension in your shoulders, the knot in your stomach when your phone rings. You start to think, this is just how life feels. It's not. It's a warning signal you've learned to ignore. I've seen this pattern destroy careers, relationships, and health. A manager who can't say no to additional projects becomes ineffective at the ones that matter. A parent who can't say no to every request becomes too exhausted to be present for the moments that count. A friend who can't say no to favors becomes resentful of the very relationships they were trying to protect. The mathematics of this trap is simple but brutal. The more you say yes to others, the more you say no to yourself. Every unnecessary yes is a theft from your own potential, your own growth, your own peace of mind. Think about this. When was the last time you had a whole day, just one day, where every yes you gave was genuine, where every action you took aligned with your true desires and values? For many of you, it's been so long you can't remember. The cost isn't just in time or energy, it's in self-respect. Every forced yes chips away at your authenticity. It's a small lie you tell yourself and others. Yes, I'd love to help. Yes, I can take that on. Yes, it's no problem. These little lies accumulate into a life that feels increasingly inauthentic. But here's what gives me hope. This trap, though common, is not a life sentence. The very fact that you're listening to this means part of you recognizes the pattern. Part of you is ready for change. And that recognition, that readiness, that's where transformation begins. In the chapters ahead, we're going to dismantle this trap piece by piece. You'll learn not just the mechanics of saying no, but the psychology of why it's so difficult. You'll discover how to build boundaries that don't just protect you, but actually strengthen your relationships. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't need more exhausted martyrs. It needs people who are fully alive, genuinely present, and authentically engaged. And that can only happen when you free yourself from the trap of endless yes. Remember, you weren't born to be available to everyone. You were born to be true to yourself first. That's not selfish. It's essential. And it's the first step toward a life of genuine yes and honest no. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a successful businessman in Chicago. On paper, he had everything: corner office, impressive title, substantial income. But when we spoke privately, he confessed something troubling. "Dale," he said, "everyone thinks I'm powerful, but I feel powerless. I can't say no to anyone without feeling like I'm failing them." This man's dilemma cuts to the heart of what we're discussing today: the profound connection between your ability to say no and your sense of self-respect. Here's what most people don't understand. Every time you say yes, when your inner voice whispers no, you're not just making a scheduled decision. You're making a statement about your worth. You're telling yourself and the world that your boundaries are negotiable, that your time is less valuable than someone else's request. I've witnessed this pattern across continents and cultures. From New York to Tokyo, from boardrooms to living rooms, people sacrifice their self-respect on the altar of agreeability. They believe that being respected means being liked, and being liked means never disappointing anyone. But let me ask you this: have you ever deeply respected someone who had no boundaries? Someone who was available to everyone all the time, for everything? Think carefully about the people you admire most. I'd wager they're people who know when to stand firm, who understand that their no is as important as their yes. You see, self-respect isn't something you get from others. It's something you build through your actions. Every time you honor your boundaries, you lay another brick in the foundation of your self-worth. Every time you say a difficult no, you're telling yourself that your needs matter, that your time has value, that your priorities deserve protection. I remember working with a young teacher in Boston. She was beloved by her students, but drowning in commitments. Every after-school club, every extra tutoring session, every weekend planning meeting, she said yes to them all. She thought she was being dedicated. In reality, she was teaching her students, her colleagues, and herself that her time had no limits, her energy no bounds. Through our work together, she learned something profound. Saying no isn't about rejection. It's about direction. It's about choosing where to invest your precious time and energy. When she finally started saying no to extra commitments, something remarkable happened. Her students didn't respect her less. They respected her more. They saw a woman who knew her worth, who modeled the very self-respect she wanted them to develop. This is the paradox that many struggle to grasp. Real respect, both self-respect and the respect of others, often comes not from what you do, but from what you refuse to do. It comes from the standards you set, the boundaries you maintain, the values you uphold even when saying yes would be easier. Consider this: every time you say yes to something you don't truly want to do, you're saying no to something else. No to rest, no to family time, no to personal growth, no to your own priorities. In essence, you're saying no to yourself. And each time you do this, you chip away at your self-respect piece by tiny piece. But here's the beautiful truth. This pattern can be reversed. Every time you say no with grace and conviction, you rebuild that self-respect. Every time you honor your boundaries, you teach others how to treat you. Every time you choose your priorities over people-pleasing, you strengthen your sense of self-worth. I've seen this transformation countless times. People who start by feeling guilty for saying no end up feeling proud of their clarity. People who fear losing relationships by setting boundaries end up building stronger ones based on mutual respect. Remember, your no is not just a word. It's a declaration of self-respect. It says, I honor my time. It says, I value my energy. It says, I respect myself enough to be honest about my limits. In the business world, we often talk about value proposition. Well, here's the most important value proposition you'll ever consider. What message are you sending about your value when you consistently override your own needs to accommodate others? You see, self-respect isn't arrogance. It's not selfishness. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your worth and honoring it through your actions. It's the foundation upon which all healthy relationships, professional and personal, are built. As we move forward, I want you to start seeing every no as an investment in your self-respect, because that's exactly what it is. Each boundary you set, each limit you maintain, each priority you protect, these are deposits in the bank of your self-worth. I want you to try something with me right now. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine saying no to someone important in your life. Perhaps your boss asking for weekend work, or a close friend requesting a favor you can't fulfill. Notice what happens in your body. The tightening in your chest, the quickening of your breath, the subtle tension in your shoulders. That physical response, that's fear. And it's far more common than you might think. During my years of teaching and consulting, I've asked thousands of people to describe what they feel when they need to say no. The answers are remarkably consistent. My heart races. My mouth goes dry. My stomach turns. These aren't just physical sensations. They're the body's ancient alarm system warning of perceived danger. Here's what most people don't understand. When you struggle to say no, you're not just dealing with a simple preference for harmony. You're grappling with some of humanity's most fundamental fears: fear of rejection, fear of conflict, and perhaps most powerfully, fear of isolation. Let me share a story about James, a brilliant software engineer I worked with in Silicon Valley. James could solve complex technical problems that stumped entire teams, but when it came to saying no to additional projects, he froze. During our sessions, we discovered that his difficulty wasn't about time management, it was about abandonment. As a child, he learned that saying no meant risking relationships, that early programming was still running his life decades later. See, these fears aren't irrational. They're deeply rooted in our evolutionary history. Our ancestors survived by maintaining group harmony. Being ostracized from the tribe wasn't just uncomfortable, it was potentially fatal. That ancient programming still runs in our modern minds, treating social rejection as a survival threat. But let me ask you this. In your life today, what's the real threat? Is it the momentary discomfort of saying no? Or is it the slow erosion of your well-being that comes from saying yes to everything? Let's dismantle these fears one by one. First, there's the fear of rejection. If I say no, they won't like me anymore. This fear assumes that your value to others lies solely in your compliance. But think about the people you most respect. Are they the ones who say yes to everything? Or are they the ones who have clear, consistent boundaries? Then there's the fear of conflict. If I say no, there will be tension. This fear overlooks a crucial truth. The tension already exists. It's just internal rather than external. You're in conflict with yourself every time you say yes when you mean no. The fear of disappointing others often masks a deeper fear, the fear of facing our own limits. Saying no means acknowledging that we can't do everything, be everything, please everyone. It means accepting our humanity, our limitations, our need for rest and boundaries. I remember working with a senior executive in London who had a profound realization. She said, "I've been treating every no as a potential catastrophe, when really it's just a normal part of human interaction." That shift in perspective changed everything for her. Here's something crucial to understand. These fears grow stronger in the dark. When we avoid examining them, they expand to fill our mental space. But when we shine a light on them, when we name them and challenge them, they begin to shrink. Try this exercise. The next time you feel that fear rising, ask yourself 3 questions. What exactly am I afraid will happen? Has this actually happened before, or am I catastrophizing? If the worst did happen, how would I handle it? You'll often find that your fears are projecting a future that's far darker than any likely reality. Remember, Maria, a small business owner I mentored, she was terrified of saying no to client requests, fearing she'd lose their business. When she finally started setting boundaries, something unexpected happened. Not only did she keep her clients, they started treating her with more respect. Why? because she was modeling self-respect. The truth is, most fears around saying no are based on false equations. No, rejection, no, conflict, no, failure. But here's a more accurate equation. No plus clarity, plus respect. Healthy relationships. Your fear of saying no is trying to protect you. It's an old survival mechanism doing its job, perhaps too well. But you're not in the ancient world anymore. You don't need everyone's approval to survive. What you need is the courage to be authentic, even when it's uncomfortable. Start small. Practice saying no to minor requests where the stakes feel lower. Notice that the world doesn't end. Notice that most people respect clear boundaries more than reluctant yeses. Notice that your fear, while real, isn't an accurate predictor of outcomes. Because here's the ultimate truth. The path to freedom from fear isn't through avoidance. It's through action. Each time you say no, despite your fear, you prove to yourself that you can handle the outcome. Each time you set a boundary despite your anxiety, you build confidence in your own resilience. Your fear of saying no is not your enemy. It's simply a sign that you're moving into new territory, growing beyond old limitations, and that's exactly where you need to be. Throughout my career, I've encountered a persistent myth that's caused more harm than almost any other. The belief that you must choose between being liked and being respected, that to say no, you must somehow be harsh or cold. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let me tell you about Helen, a department head at a major university. When I first met her, she was struggling with an all-too-common dilemma. Either I'm too soft and get taken advantage of, she told me, or I'm too harsh and damage relationships. She was caught in the false dichotomy that traps so many of us, thinking assertiveness and warmth can't coexist. Here's what most people don't understand. The most powerful no comes wrapped in genuine respect and understanding. It's not about being tough or soft. It's about being clear while maintaining connection. I've spent years teaching people how to win friends and influence people, and I can tell you this with certainty. True influence doesn't come from always saying yes. It comes from being genuine, respectful, and clear in your communication, whether you're saying yes or no. Consider this scenario I witnessed in a corporate boardroom in Dallas. Two executives were faced with the same challenge, declining a project that would overwhelm their teams. The first was blunt. "We can't do it. We're too busy." The second took a different approach. "I appreciate you thinking of our team for this project. Because we're committed to delivering excellence on our current initiatives, we wouldn't be able to give this the attention it deserves right now." Same message. Dramatically different impact. The first response created distance. The second built understanding. This is what I call polite assertiveness, the art of saying no while strengthening relationships. Let me share with you the 3 pillars of polite assertiveness. First, acknowledge the request. When someone asks something of you, they're often sharing what matters to them. Recognizing this shows respect for their priorities, even if you can't accommodate them. It's the difference between "I can't" and "I understand this is important" to you. Second, be authentic in your response. People can sense insincerity. Don't manufacture excuses or create elaborate stories. Simple, honest responses build trust. "I need to focus on my current commitments" is more powerful than a complicated explanation that masks your true reasons. Third, offer clarity, not apology. Many people dilute their no with excessive apologizing, which undermines their position and can invite pushback. Instead of "I'm so sorry, I feel terrible, but I can't," try "Thank you for thinking of me. I need to decline." I remember working with a young manager in Seattle who transformed her entire department by mastering these principles. She told me, "I used to think being liked meant being available 24/7. Now I realize people respect me more when I'm honest about my limitations." Here's a powerful truth. When you say no with respect and clarity, you teach others how to say no to you. You create a culture of honest communication. You make it safe for others to be truthful about their own boundaries. But let me ask you this. How often do you resent someone for being clear with you? Compare that to how often you resent someone for saying yes and then not following through, or for being evasive rather than direct. The language of polite assertiveness is an art form. It's not about memorizing scripts. It's about embodying principles. Here are some key phrases that maintain both boundaries and bridges. I appreciate you thinking of me, and I need to decline. Your project sounds valuable. My current commitments mean I can't give it the attention it deserves. I understand this matters to you. Here's what I can do. Notice how none of these responses include the word but. They use and instead. This small change shifts the tone from contradiction to connection. Remember, politeness without assertiveness is just pleasing. Assertiveness without politeness is just aggression. The magic lies in combining them. I've seen this transformation countless times. A department head who learned to say no while strengthening. Team loyalty, a parent who set boundaries while deepening their children's respect. A freelancer who turned down projects while building stronger client relationships. The key is understanding that saying no isn't about closing doors. It's about being clear which doors you're choosing to walk through. When done with respect and authenticity, your no can actually strengthen relationships rather than damage them. Think of it this way. Every time you say no clearly and respectfully, you're not just setting a boundary, you're teaching others how to communicate honestly. You're contributing to a culture of authentic interaction. You're showing that it's possible to be both kind and clear. This is the true power of polite assertiveness. It's not about finding the perfect words, it's about combining clarity with respect, honesty with empathy, boundaries with connection. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more skillfully you say no, the more meaningful your yes becomes. Because when people know you're capable of declining respectfully, they trust that your acceptance is genuine. Remember, you're not choosing between being liked and being respected. With polite assertiveness, you can maintain both while staying true to yourself. During a seminar in Philadelphia, I asked a room of professionals to write down their top 3 priorities in life. Then, I asked them to pull out their calendars and check how they'd spent the last month. The disconnect was staggering. People who claimed family was their top priority had worked the last 12 weekends. Others who said health was paramount hadn't seen the inside of a gym in weeks. This, my friends, is the gap between what we say matters and what our actions show matters. And it's in this gap that our inability to say no flourishes. Here's what most people don't understand. Saying no isn't primarily about time management, it's about priority clarity. When you're crystal clear about what matters most, saying no becomes less about rejection and more about protection. I remember working with Thomas, a brilliant executive who was drowning in commitments. I don't know how to say no, he told me. But as we dug deeper, we discovered the real truth. He didn't know what to say yes to. Without clear priorities, every request seemed equally important, equally urgent. Let me ask you this. If you were protecting $1 million in cash, would you have trouble saying no to someone who wanted to take some? Of course not. The value is clear, so the boundary is clear. But when it comes to your time, which is far more precious and non-renewable than money, why do you hesitate? The answer lies in what I call the clarity deficit. We live in a world of endless options, infinite demands, and constant connectivity. Without crystal clear priorities, we default to what's comfortable in the moment, saying yes rather than what's important in the long run. Consider this exercise I often use with my clients. Take out a piece of paper and write down these 3 columns. What I say is important, where my time actually goes, what I want my legacy to be. The gaps between these columns tell the story of your clarity deficit. And every time you say yes without consulting these priorities, you're widening that gap. I worked with a surgeon in Boston who had this revelation. She was saying yes to every committee, every extra shift, every colleague's request. When we mapped her time against her stated priorities, she saw that only 30% of her energy was going to what she claimed mattered most. The remaining 70% was scattered across other people's priorities. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being purposeful. Every yes should align with your core priorities. Every no should protect them. Without this clarity, you're not making decisions. You're just reacting. Here's a fundamental truth. Comfort is the enemy of clarity. It's comfortable to say yes. It's comfortable to avoid the momentary discomfort of saying no. It's comfortable to let others set your priorities. But comfort doesn't lead to fulfillment. I have observed this pattern across cultures and continents. The most successful, fulfilled people I've met aren't those who are most comfortable saying no. They're the ones who are most clear about when they must say no. Think about the last time you said yes to something you later regretted. Was it because you couldn't say no? Or was it because you weren't clear enough about your priorities to recognize that you should say no? This clarity requires courage. It requires sitting down with yourself and asking hard questions. What matters most to me? What am I willing to sacrifice for? What am I no longer willing to sacrifice? Where do I want to be in 5 years? What needs to change today to get there? These aren't comfortable questions. They force us to confront the gap between our actions and our aspirations. But they're essential questions if we want our no to have meaning. I remember a conversation with a young entrepreneur in Chicago. She was struggling to grow her business because she said yes to every client request, every project variation, every scope change. When we dug into her priorities, she realized she had never clearly defined what kind of business she wanted to build. Once she gained that clarity, her ability to say no transformed. It wasn't just about time anymore, it was about vision. Here's a powerful exercise. For the next week, before saying yes to anything, ask yourself one question. Does this align with my top 3 priorities? Not can I do this, not should I do this, but does this align? You'll be amazed at how this simple filter brings clarity to your decisions. Suddenly, saying no isn't about rejecting others. It's about protecting what matters most. Remember, clarity isn't comfortable. It forces us to make choices. It demands that we disappoint some people. It requires us to acknowledge that we can't do everything, be everything, please everyone. But here's the truth about clarity. It's the foundation of all meaningful achievement. No one ever built something significant by saying yes to everything. No one ever created lasting impact by trying to please everyone. The people who make a difference are those who are clear about their priorities and courageous in protecting them. Your time, your energy, your focus, these are the raw materials of your life's work. Being clear about how you invest them isn't selfish, it's essential. It's not just about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to your own priorities with conviction. So I challenge you, stop seeking comfort, start seeking clarity, because when you're clear about what matters most, saying no becomes an act of purpose rather than an act of avoidance. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with Rachel, a talented artist and mother of 2. She sat in my office, tears in her eyes, describing how she felt guilty every time she spent an hour painting instead of volunteering at her children's school. But when I'm at the school, she added, I feel guilty about not working on my art. I asked her a simple question. Is this guilt teaching you something, or is it trapping you? That question gets to the heart of what we need to understand about guilt, especially when it comes to saying no. Here's what most people don't understand. Guilt is not a moral compass. It's often just a habit of mind, trained into us by years of social conditioning. Yet so many of us treat every twinge of guilt as if it were a profound moral insight. I've spent decades watching people make decisions based on guilt rather than wisdom. The results are always the same: resentment, burnout, and a peculiar form of self-betrayal that comes from letting guilt be your guide. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how guilt seems to multiply? You feel guilty for saying no to a friend's request, so you say yes. Then you feel guilty for not spending that time with your family. Then you feel guilty for rushing through the task you promised your friend. It's an endless cycle, isn't it? This is what I call the guilt spiral. Each decision made from guilt creates more situations that generate more guilt. It's exhausting, And more importantly, it's not helpful. During my seminars, I often ask people to write down their last 3 guilt-driven decisions and their outcomes. The pattern is striking. Decisions made from guilt rarely serve anyone well, not the person making them and not the people they're trying to please. Consider Mark, a senior manager I worked with in Atlanta. He felt guilty every time he left the office before his team, so he stayed late every night. Did this make him a better manager? No. It made him exhausted, less effective, and it set an unhealthy example for his team. His guilt wasn't protecting his team's interests. It was harming them. You see, guilt has a way of masquerading as responsibility. It whispers that if you feel bad about something, you must be doing something wrong. But here's the truth. Your guilt often has more to do with your programming than your principles. Think about it. Where did you learn that saying no was selfish? Who taught you that your comfort matters less than others' convenience? When did you absorb the message that being available all the time was virtuous? These aren't universal truths. They're programmed responses, and just as they were programmed, they can be reprogrammed. I remember working with a physician who felt guilty every time she took a day off. We traced this guilt back to a comment made by her father when she was 12. The measure of a person is how much they help others. A valuable principle, certainly, but she had twisted it into, I must never prioritize myself. That's not wisdom. That's wounded thinking. Here's a crucial distinction we need to make. There's a difference between genuine remorse for wrongdoing and habitual guilt for normal boundary setting. One is moral guidance. The other is emotional static. When you say no to someone, you might feel guilt. But is that guilt telling you something true about your actions, or is it just playing back old tapes about what you should do? Try this exercise. The next time guilt surfaces around saying no, ask yourself, is this guilt protecting something valuable or protecting an old pattern? Would I advise someone I love to feel guilty in this situation? If I remove the guilt, what would my wisdom tell me to do? Often, you'll find that guilt is not your conscience speaking. It's your conditioning crying out. I've seen this transformation countless times. People who learn to distinguish between genuine moral guidance and habitual guilt discover a new kind of freedom. They don't become selfish or uncaring. Quite the opposite. They become more genuinely available when they do say yes, because their decisions come from wisdom rather than compulsion. Here's another powerful truth. Guilt is often a poor substitute for boundaries. When we don't know how to set clear boundaries, we use guilt as a way to process our discomfort with limits. We feel guilty instead of feeling clear. Think about the language of guilt. I should. I ought to. I must. Notice how these phrases remove choice from the equation? They turn decisions into obligations, wisdom into rules. But what if we replaced I should with I choose to or I choose not to? This simple shift moves us from guilt to responsibility, from compulsion to choice. I worked with a small business owner who felt guilty every time she raised her prices. When we explored this, we discovered her guilt wasn't protecting her clients' interests. It was keeping her from running a sustainable business that could serve them better. Remember, guilt is not always wrong, but it's not always right either. It's a signal to examine your choices, not a command to override your judgment. The next time guilt rises up when you need to say no, pause. Ask yourself, is this guilt serving wisdom or is it serving habit? Is it protecting values or is it protecting patterns? Because here's the ultimate truth. Your most ethical decisions will come from clarity, not guilt. Your most generous actions will flow from wisdom, not obligation. Your most authentic relationships will be built on honest boundaries, not guilty. Compliance. You weren't given guilt as a guide. You were given wisdom, judgment, and the capacity for genuine care. Trust these more than your guilt. They'll lead you to better decisions, clearer boundaries, and more honest relationships. Throughout my years of teaching human relations, I've discovered something fascinating. People who are confident in saying no often have a mental library of responses they've tested and refined. They're not simply winging it each time. They have reliable scripts that they adapt to different situations. Think of these scripts as diplomatic tools in your communication arsenal. Just as a skilled carpenter wouldn't attempt to build a house with just one tool, you shouldn't rely on a single way of saying no. Here's what most people don't understand. The art of saying no isn't about finding the perfect universal phrase. It's about matching your response to the situation and relationship at hand. Let me share with you the most effective scripts I've collected and tested across thousands of real-world situations. But remember, these aren't meant to be recited robotically. They're frameworks to be personalized with your own authentic voice. Let's start with the workplace, where the stakes often feel highest. When your boss asks for more than you can handle, I want to ensure I deliver excellent work on the Anderson project we discussed last week. Taking this on would impact my ability to meet those commitments. Could we discuss priorities to see what should take precedence? Notice the structure here. Acknowledge the existing commitment. Express the conflict. Invite collaboration on the solution. For persistent colleagues, I appreciate you thinking of me for this. My bandwidth is fully committed to our quarterly objectives. I want to be upfront about that, rather than risk letting you down. The key elements: recognition, clear statement of limits, honest concern for their needs, for clients requesting scope. Creep, I understand this additional feature would add value. To maintain the quality standards we both expect, this would require adjusting either our timeline or our budget. Would you like to explore those options? This approach validates the request, explains the reality, offers constructive alternatives. Now, let's move to personal relationships, where emotions run deeper. For family members who expect constant availability, I love spending time with Ho-Ho. You and I also need to maintain balance in my life. Could we plan regular times to connect that work for both of us? The framework: affirm the relationship, state your need, offer a constructive solution. For friends seeking support beyond your capacity, you matter to me and I want to be honest with you. I don't have the bandwidth right now to give this the attention it deserves. Could I help you find someone who can provide the support you need? Notice how this shows care, maintains honesty, offers alternative help. For social invitations when you need downtime, thank you for thinking of me. I'm being intentional about recharging this weekend to show up better in all areas of my life. I'd love to connect another time. The elements: gratitude, honest explanation, future opening for volunteer requests at your children's school. I value our school community and want to be realistic about my commitments. While I can't take this on, I could help with a specific, limited alternative instead. Structure: community acknowledgement, clear boundary, concrete alternative. For last-minute requests, I make it a practice not to make decisions about new commitments without giving them proper consideration. Could you give me until specific time to check my obligations and get back to you? This approach sets a professional standard, shows respect for the request, maintains control of your time. For ongoing obligations you need to end. I've valued being part of this project committee charge or group. My circumstances have changed, and I need to step back. I want to give you enough notice to find a replacement. Would 2 weeks be sufficient? Framework: acknowledge the past, clear statement of change, responsible transition. For those who don't take no for an answer, I understand this is important to you. My no isn't a reflection on you or the request. It's about my own boundaries and commitments. I need you to respect this decision. Elements: validation, clear boundary, direct request for respect. But here's something crucial to understand. The power of these scripts isn't in the exact words, it's in the principles behind them. Each effective no contains these core elements: acknowledgement of the request, clear statement of your position, brief, honest reason when appropriate, alternative solution when possible, forward-looking statement when relevant. I remember working with a young professional who transformed her relationships by mastering just 3 basic scripts. She said, "It's not about memorizing responses, it's about understanding the building blocks of a respectful no." Think of these scripts as conversation starters, not conversation enders. They open the door to honest dialogue about boundaries and expectations. Here's a powerful practice technique. Take these scripts and customize them for your most common challenging situations. Write them down. Practice them aloud. Make them your own. Remember, the goal isn't to become an expert at saying no. It's to become an expert at communicating your boundaries clearly and respectfully. The more you practice these scripts, the more natural they'll feel. You'll develop what I call boundary fluency, the ability to navigate these conversations with grace and clarity. And here's something remarkable I've observed. When you have clear scripts ready, you're actually less likely to need them. Why? Because having them gives you confidence, and confidence itself often prevents boundary-crossing situations from arising. Your no is a complete sentence, but these scripts help you deliver that sentence in a way that maintains relationships and respects both yourself and others. Let me tell you about 2 conversations I had with the same team leader 6 months apart. In the first conversation, she proudly told me how she never said no to her team's requests, how she was always there for them, always available. They can count on me, she said with obvious pride. 6 months later, she sat in my office, exhausted and bitter. "They take advantage of me," she said. "They don't respect my time. They don't appreciate what I do for them." What changed? Nothing, and that was precisely the problem. Here's what most people don't understand. Every forced yes leaves an emotional residue. Like water dripping on a stone, each one seems harmless in the moment, but over time they carve deep channels of resentment. I've witnessed this pattern countless times across every type of relationship: professional, personal, familial. The sequence is always the same: forced yes, suppressed frustration, accumulated resentment, relationship damage. Think about a time when you said yes while screaming no inside. Where did that energy go? Did it dissipate? No. It went underground, where it began its quiet work of erosion. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how some of your strongest negative reactions come not in response to major offenses, but to minor requests? That's because you're not really reacting to the current request. You're reacting to the accumulated weight of all your forced yeses. I worked with a married couple in Denver who were on the brink of divorce. When we dug into their conflicts, we discovered something surprising. Their biggest fights weren't about the traditional major issues, money, fidelity, parenting. They were about tiny requests. Can you pick up the dry cleaning? Would somehow escalate into a major argument. Why? Because each small yes that should have been a no had left its mark. Every time she said yes to handling one more household task while building her career, every time he said yes to one more family obligation while needing rest, these forced yeses had created a reservoir of unspoken resentment that poisoned even their simplest interactions. This is what I call the yes debt. Like financial debt, it accrues interest. The longer you carry it, the more it costs you. Consider what happens in your body when you force a yes. Your jaw clenches, your shoulders tense, your breathing becomes shallow, your stomach tightens. These physical reactions aren't random. They're your body's way of registering protest. And here's the crucial thing to understand. These responses don't just disappear when the moment passes. They become part of your physical memory of that relationship. I remember working with a junior executive who always said yes to his bosses. Last-minute requests? It's just part of the job, he'd say. But in our sessions, I noticed something telling. Every time he mentioned his boss's name, his right shoulder would tense. His body was keeping score of every forced yes. The damage isn't just personal, it's contagious. When you consistently override your own needs, you teach others to do the same. You contribute to a culture of forced yeses that damages everyone involved. Think about it. Have you ever respected someone less because they seem to have no boundaries? Have you ever felt secure in a relationship where you suspected the other person was constantly suppressing their true feelings? Here's a profound truth. People don't trust a yes from someone who never says no. They may take advantage of it. They may enjoy it in the moment, but at some level, they know it's not authentic. I've seen this play out in organizations where team player becomes code for never says no. The short-term harmony these cultures create is always undermined by the long-term damage of suppressed truth. The cost manifests in predictable stages: physical tension, emotional withdrawal, passive aggression, active resentment, relationship breakdown. Each forced yes is a small betrayal, not just of yourself, but of the relationship. Because authentic relationships need truth to thrive, even when that truth is a no. Consider this scenario I witnessed in a family business. A father kept saying yes to his son's requests for business resources, even when he knew they were unwise. He thought he was being supportive. Instead, he was damaging their relationship twice over, first by not giving his son the benefit of his honest judgment, and then by resenting his son for the very requests he'd agreed to. Here's another crucial understanding. Resentment doesn't just affect the relationship where it originates. It spills over. The yes you force at work becomes impatience with your family. The boundary you fail to set with your friend becomes irritation with your partner. This is why learning to say no isn't just about managing your time or energy. It's about maintaining the integrity of your relationships. Every honest no preserves the authenticity that relationships need to thrive. Remember, the temporary discomfort of saying no is far less damaging than the permanent erosion of forced yeses. When you say yes while meaning no, you're not just betraying yourself, you're betraying the possibility of genuine connection. The next time you're tempted to force a yes, ask yourself, what am I really saving by avoiding this no? The moment might be easier, but at what cost to the relationship's future? Because here's the ultimate truth. Relationships built on forced yeses are houses built on sand. They might look stable on the surface, but they cannot withstand the weight of accumulated resentment. Your no is not just your right, it's your responsibility to the health of your relationships. Use it wisely, use it respectfully, but use it. During a seminar in Houston, a senior manager approached me with tears in her eyes. I just had the most extraordinary conversation with my team, she said. For the first time in my career, I told them I couldn't take on another project, that it would compromise the quality of our current work. Instead of being disappointed, they thanked me for my honesty. One of them said, "Finally, a leader who tells us the truth." This moment captures a paradox that many of us struggle to embrace. Clear boundaries don't push people away, they draw them closer through trust. Here's what most people don't understand. Trust isn't built on endless availability. It's built on consistency between words and actions, on the reliability that comes from honest communication, and on the respect that flows from clear boundaries. I've spent years studying human relations, and I can tell you this with certainty. People don't trust those who never say no. They may take advantage of their availability, they may enjoy their compliance, but deep down, they don't trust them. Why? Because they know that someone who can't say no to others probably isn't being honest with them either. Let me ask you this. Think of someone you deeply trust. Is it someone who agrees with everything you say? Who's available at your every beck and call? Or is it someone who has the courage to tell you the truth, even when it's not what you want to hear? I remember working with a father who was afraid to set boundaries with his teenage daughter. If I say no, she'll pull away, he worried. But when we dug deeper, we discovered his daughter was already pulling away because she couldn't trust the authenticity of his yes. I never know if Dad really wants to do something, she told me, or if he's just afraid to say no. This is what I call the authenticity paradox. The more you try to preserve relationships by avoiding no's, the more you undermine the very trust those relationships need to thrive. Consider these trust-building elements of a well-communicated no. It demonstrates self-awareness. When you say no clearly, you show that you know your limits. This self-knowledge is deeply attractive to others. It signals that you're someone who can be counted on to be honest about capabilities and limitations. It shows respect for others' time by saying no promptly and clearly. Rather than stringing people along with maybes, you demonstrate respect for their planning and priorities. It creates clarity. There's nothing more confusing than trying to interpret someone's reluctant yes. A clear no provides solid ground on which others can make decisions. It models healthy behavior. When you set boundaries confidently, you give others permission to do the same. You contribute to a culture of honest communication. I worked with a team leader who transformed her department's culture through boundary setting. Initially, she worried her new approach would create distance. Instead, it sparked what she called a revolution of honesty. Team members began speaking up about workload concerns before projects crashed. They started having direct conversations about capacity instead of silently burning out. Here's another powerful truth. When you set boundaries clearly, you actually create safety in relationships. People know where they stand with you. They don't have to guess, interpret, or worry about hidden resentments. Think about relationships like a dance. It's much easier to dance with someone who's clear about their space than with someone who's constantly shifting to avoid contact. Clear boundaries create predictability, and predictability breeds trust. I remember a conversation with a successful business owner who had transformed her client relationships through boundary setting. I used to think clients would leave if I said no to their requests, she told me. Instead, they started referring more business to me. One client said, "We recommend you because we know you'll tell us the truth about what's possible." This is what authentic trust looks like. It's not built on endless accommodation. It's built on reliable truth-telling. Consider these moments of trust building through boundaries. When you tell a client honestly that their timeline isn't feasible, when you inform a friend that you need to reschedule when you're overwhelmed, when you let your team know that a project needs more resources to succeed, when you tell your partner you need time alone to recharge, each of these no's, delivered with respect and clarity, doesn't damage the relationship. It deepens it through honesty. Here's something crucial to understand. Trust isn't about making people happy in the moment. It's about being someone they can count on over time. And they can't count on you if you're not honest about your boundaries. I've seen this transformation countless times. The manager who finally tells their team they're overloaded and watches trust deepen. The parent who sets clear limits and sees their relationship with their child strengthen. The friend who stops saying yes to every request and finds their friendships growing more authentic. Remember, every time you say no clearly and respectfully, you're not just setting a boundary, you're making a deposit in the bank of trust. You're telling the other person, "I respect you enough to tell you the truth." This is why learning to say no isn't just about protecting your time or energy. It's about building the foundation for deeper, more authentic relationships. It's about creating the kind of trust that can only come from honest communication. The next time you're tempted to say yes out of fear of damaging a relationship, ask yourself, what would build more trust here? A reluctant yes or an honest no? Because in the long run, people don't trust us for our compliance. They trust us for our truth. Your boundaries are not walls. They're bridges to deeper understanding and authentic connection. Use them wisely, communicate them clearly, and watch your relationships transform through trust. During a workshop in Chicago, I asked a participant to role-play saying no to a colleague's request. Her words were perfect, clear, respectful, firm, but her body told a different story. Her shoulders hunched, her hands fidgeted, her eyes darted away. Everyone in the room could sense her discomfort, and it undermined her message entirely. Here's what most people don't understand. Your body speaks your truth even when your words try to hide it. In fact, research suggests that up to 93% of our communication is nonverbal. When it comes to setting boundaries, your body language isn't just important. It's often the message itself. I've spent years studying how successful people communicate their boundaries, and I've noticed something fascinating. Those who maintain boundaries effectively share certain physical habits. It's not just what they say, it's how they carry themselves when they say it. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how some people can say no with such natural authority that it rarely invites argument, while others say the same words but somehow spark immediate pushback? The difference often lies not in their words, but in their physical presence. Consider this example. I worked with two department heads in the same company. Both were saying no to excessive requests, but one faced constant challenges while the other rarely did. When we analyzed their communication, we discovered that the first leader would physically back away while saying no, literally creating a defensive posture. The second maintained what I call grounded presence, feet firmly planted, posture open, eye contact steady. The elements of powerful boundary-setting body language are grounded posture, feet shoulder-width apart, weight, evenly distributed spine straight, but not rigid, shoulders relaxed and level. This posture communicates security in your position without aggression. Intentional hand gestures, palms visible, signals honesty, movements smooth and deliberate, avoiding self-soothing gestures like rubbing neck or crossing arms, using boundary gestures that match your words. I remember working with a surgeon who struggled with enforcing time boundaries in her practice. Her words were clear, but she would unconsciously wring her hands while speaking, a gesture that signaled anxiety and invited negotiation. When she learned to keep her hands relaxed and visible, her boundaries became much more effective. Eye contact steady, but not staring, maintaining connection without dominance, breaking contact naturally, not nervously, using the triangle technique, moving between both eyes and the bridge of the nose. Think of eye contact as a conversation in itself. Too little suggests uncertainty, too much can feel aggressive. The key is finding what I call confident connection. Facial expression neutral but not cold, matching your words. Avoiding apologetic smiles, maintaining composure. One of the most common mistakes I see is the apologetic no, where someone says no while smiling nervously. This mixed message confuses the receiver and often leads to continued pushing against the boundary. Breathing, pattern deep and steady, speaking from the diaphragm, avoiding shallow, anxious breathing. Using breath to pace your words, I worked with a CEO who transformed her executive presence by simply learning to breathe properly while setting boundaries. When I breathe deeply, she told me, I feel more confident, and I can see that others sense that confidence too. Spatial awareness, maintaining appropriate distance, not backing away while saying no, standing or sitting with intention, using space. To reinforce your message, here's a powerful truth. Your physical space is the first boundary you set. How you occupy it sends clear messages about how you expect your other boundaries to be respected. Consider these common body language mistakes when setting boundaries. Nodding while saying no creates confusion. Backing away physically signals lack of conviction. Raising pitch of voice suggests uncertainty. Excessive head tilting can signal submission. Covering mouth or throat suggests dishonesty or insecurity. I remember working with a teacher who struggled with classroom discipline. Her words were firm, but she would unconsciously back toward her desk while setting boundaries with students. Once she learned to stand her ground physically, her classroom management transformed. Here's something crucial to understand. Your body language isn't just expressing your boundary. It's either strengthening or weakening it. Every fidget, every averting of eyes, every nervous laugh is like a small crack in your boundary wall. Try this exercise. The next time you need to set a boundary, practice first in front of a mirror. Notice, where do your eyes go? What do your hands do? How does your posture shift? What happens to your breathing? This self-awareness is the first step toward aligning your physical presence with your verbal message. Remember, when your body language matches your words, you create what I call congruent communication. This alignment is powerful. It makes your boundaries clearer, more respected, and easier to maintain. The beauty of body language is that it can be learned. Just as you can learn new words, you can learn new ways of holding yourself. Small adjustments in posture, eye contact, and gesture can dramatically change how your boundaries are received. Think of your body as the punctuation mark to your verbal boundary. Your words might be the sentence, but your body language determines whether that sentence ends with a period, a question mark, or an ellipsis. Practice these elements until they become natural. Your goal isn't to intimidate or dominate. It's to communicate with your whole being that your boundaries are clear, considered, and worthy of respect. Because here's the ultimate truth. When your body speaks the same language as your words, your boundaries become not just statements, but natural laws, clear, consistent, and rarely challenged. Let me share a scene I witnessed in a corporate office in Seattle. A senior manager had just declined an unrealistic project deadline. Her initial no was clear, professional, and well-reasoned. Then came the pushback. But we've always met. Tight deadlines before, the client will be disappointed. Maybe you're not as committed as your predecessor. In that moment, something remarkable happened. Instead of defending, explaining, or backing down, common reactions to pressure, she remained calm and simply said, "I understand this isn't the answer you hope for. My position hasn't changed. What other solutions should we explore?" Here's what most people don't understand. The moment after you say no is often more important than the no itself. It's in handling the pushback that your real boundary-setting skills are tested. I've spent years studying how successful people maintain their boundaries under pressure, and I've noticed a fascinating pattern. Those who handle pushback most effectively treat it not as a threat, but as an expected part of the boundary-setting process. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how children test boundaries? They don't just accept a no the first time, they push, they negotiate, they try different approaches. Adults aren't so different. The key is learning to handle this testing with the same calm consistency a skilled parent brings to their child's 20th request for ice cream. Consider these common types of pushback and how to handle them. The guilt push. I thought we were friends. After all I've done for you, I would do it for you. Response strategy. Acknowledge but don't engage with the emotional manipulation. Our friendship is important to me, and so is being honest with you. My answer remains no. The emergency push, but this is an emergency. We don't have any other options. Everything will fall apart if you don't help. Response strategy. Stay focused on your capacity, not their crisis. I understand this is urgent for you. That doesn't change my ability to help right now. I worked with a physician who transformed her practice by mastering this principle. When patients pushed for unnecessary antibiotics, she would calmly say, "I understand you want to feel better quickly. My responsibility is to recommend what's truly best for your health, not what's most comfortable in the moment." The negotiation push. What if we made it smaller? Could you just do part of it? What if we pushed the deadline? Response strategy. If negotiation is genuinely possible, be clear about your terms. If not, be direct. I appreciate your flexibility, but this isn't a matter of adjusting the terms. I need to decline completely. The competence challenge. I guess you can't handle it? Maybe you're not as capable as I thought. Others seem to manage this just fine. Response strategy. Don't take the bait. I'm confident in my assessment of my capacity. This isn't about ability. It's about choosing where to focus my energy. Here's a powerful truth I've observed. Most people don't persist in pushing against boundaries unless they've learned from experience that pushing works. Your calm, consistent response isn't just about the current situation. It's about resetting expectations for all future interactions. I remember working with a consultant who had a breakthrough realization. I trained people to push against my boundaries by eventually giving in, Now I'm retraining them by remaining steady. The key elements of handling pushback effectively are emotional stability, maintain calm breathing, keep your voice steady, don't match escalating emotion. Stay grounded. In your decision, verbal consistency, avoid introducing new justifications. Don't elaborate on previous explanations. Use calm repetition when necessary. Keep responses simple and clear. Time management. Don't rush to fill silence. Give yourself permission to pause. Set clear endpoints to negotiations. Be willing to end conversations that become circular. Physical presence. Maintain open, confident posture. Keep eye contact steady. Avoid defensive gestures. Stay physically grounded. Consider this framework for handling persistent pushback. First push. Restate your position clearly. As I said, I need to decline. Second push. Acknowledge and reinforce. I hear how important this is to you. My position hasn't changed. Third push. Set a clear conversation boundary. We've discussed this fully. I need to end this conversation now. I worked with a team leader who transformed her effectiveness by mastering what I call the broken record technique, calmly repeating her position without defensiveness or elaboration. I realized, she told me, that adding new explanations just created new angles for pushback. Here's something crucial to understand. When people push against your boundaries, they're not always consciously testing you. Often they're operating from their own fears, pressures, or habits. Your calm persistence isn't just protecting your boundaries, it's helping them adjust to a healthier dynamic. Remember these principles when facing pushback. Discomfort is normal. Expect to feel uncomfortable. Know that the feeling will pass. Stay focused on your long-term interests. Trust in the wisdom of your initial, no silence is powerful. Don't fill nervous pauses. Let others sit with your no. Give space for acceptance. Allow natural conclusions. Preparation prevents panic. Anticipate likely pushback. Practice responses in advance. Know your bottom lines. Trust your preparation. Because here's the ultimate truth. Your boundaries are tested, not in the moment of saying no, but in the moments of maintaining that no under pressure. Each time you stay calm and consistent in the face of pushback, you're not just protecting your current boundary, you're building your capacity for all future boundary setting. Your calm persistence in the face of pushback isn't just about winning the current conversation. It's about establishing a pattern of reliable boundaries that will serve you in all your relationships. I once asked a room full of executives to write down their definition of nice. The responses were revealing. All was helpful. Never saying no. Putting others first. Available whenever needed. Notice something about these definitions. They're not describing kindness. They're describing servitude. Here's what most people don't understand. Somewhere along the way, we've confused being nice with being a doormat. We've created a false equation where kindness equals compliance, where being good means being available, where caring is measured by how much we sacrifice ourselves for others. Let me tell you about Patricia, a brilliant researcher I worked with in Boston. She prided herself on being the nice one in her department. She took on others' work, covered their shifts, answered emails at midnight. "I just want to help," she'd say. But there was bitterness in her voice when she said it. I asked her a simple question. If being nice means slowly destroying yourself, how kind is that really? Let me ask you this. When did we decide that kindness meant the absence of boundaries? When did we conclude that being good required being endlessly available? Who taught us that self-respect and consideration for others couldn't coexist? The myth of nice has created more damage in professional and personal relationships than almost any other misconception I've encountered. It's turned good people into exhausted martyrs, transformed caring professionals into burnout statistics, and convinced countless individuals that their own well-being must be sacrificed on the altar of niceness. Consider these common myths about being nice. Myth number 1. Nice people never say no truth. Truly kind people say no when saying yes would create resentment or poor quality work. Myth number 2, nice people are always available. Truth, genuine availability requires having enough energy and presence to be truly helpful. Myth 3, nice people put everyone else first. Truth, real kindness includes being kind to yourself. I remember working with a school teacher who had an epiphany during one of our sessions. I thought being nice meant saying yes to every parent request, she said. Then I realized that when I'm exhausted and overwhelmed, I'm not actually nice to anyone, including my students who need me most. Here's a powerful truth. Real kindness has boundaries. Real caring has limits. Real help comes from a place of strength, not depletion. Think about the truly kind people in your life, the ones who've made the biggest positive impact. Are they the ones who say yes to everything? Or are they the ones who've mastered the art of caring while maintaining their own integrity? I worked with a hospice nurse who transformed her practice when she realized this distinction. I thought being nice meant being available to my patients 24/7, she told me. But when I started setting clear boundaries about my time, I actually became a better nurse. I was more present, more compassionate, more effective. Let's examine what real kindness looks like. It's sustainable. It comes from a place of fullness, not depletion. It considers long-term impact, not just immediate relief. It maintains the health of the giver and the receiver. It creates patterns that can be maintained over time. It's honest. It includes telling difficult truths when necessary. It acknowledges real limitations and constraints. It respects both parties' needs and boundaries. It avoids false promises or unsustainable commitments. It's respectful. It treats both parties as capable adults. It honors the dignity of saying no. It recognizes the right to set boundaries. It values quality over quantity in help. Consider this scenario. 2 friends offer to help you move. The first says yes immediately, but shows up late, exhausted from other commitments, and leaves early. The second thoughtfully considers their schedule, declines if they can't fully commit, or shows up fully present if they say yes, which is actually kinder. The myth of nice would say the first friend, they said yes after all. But real kindness lives in the second response, honest, reliable, and respectful of both parties. Here's something crucial to understand. When we act from the myth of nice, we're often not being kind at all. We're creating unrealistic expectations, building resentment, modeling unhealthy behavior, enabling dependency, sacrificing quality for quantity. I remember a conversation with a business owner who had a breakthrough moment. I realized, she said, that by always saying yes to client requests, I wasn't being nice. I was being dishonest. I was promising things I couldn't deliver well. And that's not kind to anyone. The real alternative to being nice isn't being mean, it's being authentic. It's setting clear, kind boundaries, making promises you can keep, offering help you can sustainably give, maintaining your own well-being so you can truly be there for others. Being honest about your limitations. Think about it this way. Would you trust a bridge that couldn't hold its own weight to carry others safely? Then, why do we believe that depleting ourselves somehow serves others better? The next time someone calls you not nice for setting a boundary, remember this. True kindness requires boundaries. True caring requires sustainability. True help requires honesty. Because here's the ultimate truth. The myth of nice isn't serving anyone. It's creating exhausted helpers, entitled receivers, and relationships built on resentment rather than respect. Your boundaries aren't the opposite of kindness. They're the foundation of genuine care. They're what allow you to show up fully, help sustainably, and model the kind of healthy relationships we all need. Remember, you're not here to be nice. You're here to be kind, authentic, and effective. And sometimes that means saying no with grace, setting boundaries with compassion, and choosing sustainability over endless availability. During a leadership seminar in New York, I watched a fascinating interaction. A CEO was being pressed to take on an additional board position. Instead of launching into a lengthy explanation or offering elaborate excuses, she simply said, "I've considered it carefully, and I need to decline." When pushed for reasons, she added only, "My current commitments require my full attention." Nothing more. The room's reaction was palpable. Her restraint commanded more respect than any detailed justification could have achieved. Here's what most people don't understand. When it comes to maintaining boundaries, less is often more. The urge to explain, justify, and elaborate usually weakens rather than strengthens our position. I've studied thousands of interactions where boundaries are being set, and I've noticed a consistent pattern. The more someone explains their no, the more their no gets questioned. It's as if each explanation becomes a new point of negotiation, a new angle for pushback. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how children often accept a firm, simple no more readily than one wrapped? In lengthy explanations, adults aren't so different. We respect clarity and can sense when excessive explanation comes from a place of insecurity. Consider these two responses to the same request. Response 1. I'm so sorry, but I can't make it to the committee meeting because my daughter has a recital, and I promised her months ago I'd be there. And you know how important these things are to kids, and I feel terrible about letting the team down, but family has to come first, right? Maybe I could call in for part of it? Response 2. I won't be able to attend the meeting. Which response invites more discussion? Which feels more definitive? Which commands more respect? I worked with a judge who transformed her effectiveness on the bench through this principle. I used to think I needed to explain every ruling in detail, she told me. Then I realized my lengthy explanations often undermined my authority rather than reinforced it. Here's a powerful truth. Every explanation you offer becomes a potential point of debate. Every justification becomes an invitation to problem solve. Your boundary away. Think about the most respected people you know. They typically share this quality, economy of words, when setting boundaries. They understand that restraint itself communicates strength. Let's examine why restraint builds respect. It shows confidence. You trust your decision enough to let it stand on its own. You don't need others' approval or understanding. You're comfortable with potential disapproval. You recognize your right to say no without defense. It creates clarity, no mixed messages, no unintended openings for negotiation, no confusion about your position, no dilution of your boundary. It commands attention. Each word carries more weight. Your message stands out. Your position becomes memorable. Your boundary becomes clearer. I remember working with a renowned surgeon who mastered this principle. When asked to take on additional cases beyond his capacity, he would simply say, "I'm not available for that." No apologies, no explanations, no justifications. His restraint made his boundaries both clear and respected. Here's something crucial to understand. The impulse to over-explain often comes from our own discomfort with holding boundaries, not from any actual need to justify them. Consider these common over-explanation triggers: fear of being judged, guilt about saying no, anxiety about conflict, need for approval, habit of defensiveness. The solution isn't more words, it's more comfort, with silence. I worked with a nonprofit director who discovered this truth the hard way. I used to write paragraphs explaining why I couldn't attend every event, she told me. Now I simply respond with, "I won't be able to make it." Not only does it save time, but I've noticed people respect my boundaries more. The art of restraint involves clear statements, simple, direct language, no hedging or qualifying, no unnecessary apologizing, no invitation for debate, comfortable silence, resisting the urge to fill pauses, allowing others to process your no standing, firm in quiet moments, trusting your boundary to stand alone, minimal follow-up. No need to re-explain, no defensive responses to pushback, no elaborate justifications when challenged, no reopening closed discussions. Remember this principle. The strength of your boundary isn't measured by the volume of your explanation, but by the clarity of your position. Think of your boundary like a stone wall. Each unnecessary explanation is like adding a vine that could give others a handhold to climb over. Clean, clear boundaries are harder to challenge. Here's a practical framework for restraint. First response: clear and simple. I won't be able to take that on. If pushed, brief reinforcement: I understand, but my position hasn't changed. If pushed. Again, close the discussion. I've given you my answer. I need to end this conversation. Never added apologies, explanations, justifications, because here's the ultimate truth. Your no doesn't need decoration. Your boundaries don't need defense. Your position doesn't need explanation. When you trust your right to have boundaries enough, to state them simply, you demonstrate a quiet confidence that others naturally respect. Your restraint becomes a form of strength. Your silence a form of authority. The next time you're tempted to explain a boundary at length, remember, you're not on trial, you're not seeking approval, you're simply stating a truth that needs no defense. Your restraint isn't a weakness to overcome, it's a power to cultivate. Use it wisely, use it consistently, and watch how it transforms the way others receive and respect your boundaries. In a memorable consultation with a talented software engineer in San Francisco, she shared a frustrating pattern. Every time I solve an urgent problem outside of work hours, I'm seen as the hero. But somehow, this means I'm now expected to be available 24/7. How did this happen? I told her something that stopped her in her tracks. You didn't just solve their technical problems, you trained them to expect your constant availability. The good news? You can retrain those expectations. Here's what. Most people don't understand. Every interaction you have is a training session. Every time you respond to a late-night email, every time you accept an unreasonable deadline, every time you drop everything for someone else's emergency, you're teaching others what to expect from you. I've spent years studying how behavioral patterns form in professional and personal relationships, and I've observed a fascinating truth. People don't just test boundaries, they learn from how consistently you maintain them. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how a young child will ask the same parent for permission after the other parent has said no? They've learned through experience that inconsistency in boundaries creates opportunities. Adults in your life aren't so different, they've just gotten more sophisticated about it. Consider this scenario I witnessed in a law firm. Two associates started on the same day. One consistently left at 6 p.m. unless there was a genuine emergency. The other regularly stayed late to show dedication. 6 months later, guess which one was expected to be available at all hours? People learn what you teach them. The process of training others to respect your boundaries involves 4 key elements. Consistency in response. Same boundary, same response every time. No exceptions based on mood or convenience. Clear patterns that others can predict. Reliable. Follow through on stated limits. Clear communication of standards. Explicit about your available hours. Transparent about your response times. Specific about your capacity. Direct about your priorities. Predictable consequences, following through on. Stated boundaries, allowing others to experience the results of pushing limits, maintaining consequences consistently. Avoiding rescue operations for poor planning. Patience through the process. Understanding that retraining takes time. Expecting initial resistance, maintaining calm during pushback. Trusting in the long-term results, I worked with a creative director who transformed her team's culture through this understanding. I realized, she told me, that my team's constant interruptions weren't their fault. They were mine. I had trained them that my focus was always available for interruption. Here's a powerful truth. People will often resist your new boundaries not because they're unreasonable, but because they conflict with the patterns you've previously established. Think of it like updating software. The old program doesn't go quietly. It fights to maintain its familiar patterns. But with consistent new inputs, the system eventually updates. Consider these common training mistakes. Inconsistent enforcement. Making exceptions just this once. Changing boundaries based on mood, allowing special circumstances too often, failing to follow through, unclear signals, setting boundaries without stating them, expecting others to read your mind, sending mixed messages, failing to be explicit about changes, rescue patterns, solving problems created by others' poor planning, making exceptions for manufactured emergencies, taking responsibility for others' lack of preparation, enabling dependent behavior. Remember, working with a consultant who had an illuminating moment, I realized I wasn't just saying yes to urgent client requests. I was teaching them to create urgency to get my attention. The retraining process follows predictable stages: initial resistance, others push back against new boundaries, old patterns try to reassert themselves, testing of new limits, attempts to return to comfortable patterns, adjustment period gradual, acceptance of new norms, testing becomes less frequent, new patterns begin to establish, others start to adapt their behavior, new normal boundaries become expected, others plan around your limits, respect for your time increases, interactions become more efficient. Here's something crucial to understand. When you start setting consistent boundaries, you're not just changing your behavior, you're initiating a system update in all your relationships. This requires clear communication. I respond to emails between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. I schedule meetings with 24 hours notice. I take on new projects only when current commitments are complete. Consistent action, following through, unstated boundaries, maintaining limits, even when inconvenient, responding the same way to similar situations, avoiding exceptions that undermine patterns, calm, persistence, standing firm through initial pushback, maintaining boundaries without anger, expecting and accepting resistance, trusting the process of change. Because here's the ultimate truth. People don't just respect the boundaries you set, they respect the boundaries you consistently maintain. Think of it like teaching a new language. At first, everyone wants to default to the old familiar tongue, but with patience and persistence, the new language becomes the natural way to communicate. Your boundaries are this new language. Every consistent enforcement is a lesson. Every maintained limit is a teaching moment. Every calm no is an education in how you expect to be treated. Remember, you're not just setting boundaries, you're teaching others how to interact with you successfully. This isn't about control. It's about creating clear, consistent patterns that make relationships more respectful and effective for everyone involved. During a workshop in Toronto, I asked participants to track every interruption they experienced in a typical workday. The results were staggering. One executive counted 87 discrete interruptions between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. But that's just how business works now, she said, resigned to this reality. Is it though? Or have we simply normalized a state of constant fragmentation? Here's what most people don't understand. Your time, energy, and focus are not infinite resources to be freely distributed to whoever asks. They are precious, non-renewable, assets that require fierce protection through strong boundaries. I've spent years studying productivity and human potential, and I've noticed something fascinating. The most accomplished people aren't those who do the most things. They're those who most carefully protect their time, energy, and focus for what truly matters. Let me ask you this. If someone walked into your office and started taking money out of your wallet, would you let them? Of course not. Yet how often do you let others help themselves to your time, drain your energy, or scatter your focus? Consider this story. I worked with a brilliant researcher who was struggling to complete her groundbreaking work. Her calendar was full of meetings she didn't need to attend, her inbox was overflowing with other people's urgent requests, and her focus was constantly fragmented by interruptions. She was trading her potential masterpiece for 1,000 minor obligations. The costs of poor boundaries manifest in 3 critical areas: time depletion, constant interruptions, unnecessary meetings, other people's emergencies, tasks that could be delegated, energy drain, emotional labor of always being available, stress of context switching, resentment from overcommitment, recovery time from boundary violations, focus fragmentation, scattered attention, inability to reach deep work, lost momentum on important projects, diminished quality of thought I remember working with. A surgeon who transformed his practice through this understanding. I realized, he told me, that by being available for every minor consultation, I was compromising my energy for the operating room, where I needed to be at my absolute best. Here's a powerful truth. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Every moment given to an unnecessary interruption is a moment taken from necessary focus. Every ounce of energy spent on low-priority tasks is energy unavailable for high-priority excellence. Think of your resources like a bank account, time account, 24 hours daily deposit, no savings possible, no overdraft available, investment required for returns. Energy account, limited daily renewal, requires regular deposits, can be overdrawn with consequences. Quality matters more than quantity focus. Account depletes with fragmentation, compounds with protection, requires recovery after interruption, best used in concentrated blocks. The protection of these resources requires clear boundaries around. Accessibility, designated times for meetings protected. Periods for deep work. Clear communication channels, defined response times, commitments, careful project selection. Realistic timelines, deliberate yes, decisions. Strategic no responses, work environment, physical space boundaries, digital interruption, control noise and distraction management, energy draining relationship limits. I worked with a CEO who revolutionized her company's culture by implementing what she called Focus Fridays. No meetings, no interruptions, just dedicated time for important work. The result? Higher quality output, less stress, and paradoxically, better responsiveness during other times. Here's something crucial to understand. The quality of your output is directly proportional to your ability to protect your input. When you allow constant interruption of your time, energy, and focus, you're not just losing productivity, you're compromising your potential for excellence. Consider these boundary-setting strategies for resource protection. Time boundaries, clear working hours, protected deep work periods, scheduled response times, dedicated recovery periods, energy boundaries, task batching for efficiency, energy aligned. Scheduling relationship energy management, strategic renewal periods, focus boundaries, interruption-free zones, digital distraction control environment, optimization, attention protection protocols. Remember this principle: your capacity to create value depends entirely on your ability to protect these three resources. They are the raw materials of your impact in the world. Think of it this way. Would you expect a car to run without fuel, a phone to work without charging, or a garden to thrive without protection from pests? Yet, we often expect our minds and bodies to perform optimally without protecting their essential resources. The reclamation process involves resource audit, track your time allocation, monitor your energy patterns, observe your focus disruptions, identify resource leaks, boundary implementation, set clear availability limits, create protected work periods, establish response protocols, design recovery systems, consistent enforcement, maintain boundaries firmly, communicate limits clearly, handle violations promptly, adjust systems as needed, because here's the ultimate truth. Your ability to make your highest contribution in your work, your relationships, your life depends not on how much you do, but on how well you protect and deploy your essential resources. Your boundaries aren't just about saying no to others, they're about saying yes to your potential. They're not restrictions on your impact, they're the foundation of your effectiveness. When you protect your time, you create space for what matters most. When you guard your energy, you show up fully for your true priorities. When you defend your focus, you enable your highest quality work. This isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's not limiting, it's liberating. Because only when you have strong boundaries around your essential resources can you offer your best self to the world. During a leadership conference in Austin, a participant asked me a profound question. We've spent so much time learning when to say no, but how do I know when I should say yes? It's a question that gets to the heart of what boundaries are really about, not just protection, but purpose. Here's what most people don't understand. The goal of setting boundaries isn't to say no more often. It's to make your yes more meaningful. A well-placed yes can be as powerful as 1,000 no's. I've spent years studying how successful people make decisions, and I've noticed something fascinating. Those who have the most impact aren't those who say no most often. They're those who say yes most purposefully. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to accomplish incredible things without seeming overwhelmed, while others are constantly busy but produce little of significance? The difference often lies not in how often they say no, but in how deliberately they say yes. Consider this story. I worked with a philanthropist who transformed her impact by becoming more selective about her yeses. I used to say yes to every worthy cause, she told me. Now I say yes only to those where I can create lasting change. Surprisingly, I'm helping fewer causes, but having greater impact. The art of the meaningful yes involves understanding. The anatomy of a good yes aligns with your values, leverages your unique strengths, creates genuine impact, energizes, rather than depletes, the context of capacity, current commitments available, resources, energy requirements, timeline realities, the clarity of purpose, clear objectives, defined outcomes, meaningful contribution, strategic fit. I remember working with a tech executive who revolutionized his effectiveness through what he called the power of the focused yes. He reduced his commitments by 70%, but doubled his impact by choosing only projects where his specific expertise could create transformative change. Here's a powerful truth. A yes given without purpose is as damaging as a no withheld from fear. Both represent a failure to steward your potential effectively. Consider these criteria for a meaningful yes. Value alignment. Resonates with core principles. Serves important purposes. Creates lasting benefit. Reflects authentic interests. Resource. Optimization. Utilizes key strengths. Maximizes impact, potential. Leverages unique capabilities. Creates synergistic effects. Strategic timing. Fits current life phase. Aligns with available capacity. Builds on existing momentum. Creates future opportunities. Think of your yes as an investment. Just as a wise investor carefully selects opportunities that align with their strategy and capacity, you should choose your commitments based on where you can create the most value. Here's something crucial to understand. The power of your yes diminishes with each additional commitment. Like a battery's charge, your energy and effectiveness have limits. The art is in recognizing and respecting these limits. Consider these questions before saying yes. Purpose questions. Does this align with my core values? Will this create meaningful impact? Is this the best use of my capabilities? Does this serve my long-term vision? Practical questions. Do I have the necessary resources? Can I commit fully to this? Is the timing right? What will I need to say no to? Personal questions. Does this energize me? Will this help me grow? Can I bring my best to this? Does this feel authentic? I worked with a nonprofit leader who transformed her organization by mastering what she called the strategic yes. She developed a simple but powerful framework. Yes, criteria, clear impact. Can we create significant change? Core competency. Are we uniquely suited for this? Capacity match. Do we have the resources? Cultural fit. Does this align with our values? Remember this principle. Your yes has power precisely because it's not given to everything. It's a commitment of your essence, not just your time. The elements of a powerful yes include clear understanding, explicit expectations, defined parameters, understood commitments, recognized implications, full engagement, complete presence, dedicated focus, genuine enthusiasm, sustained commitment, strategic alignment, purpose, integration, resource optimization, growth opportunity, impact potential. Because here's the ultimate truth: your most powerful yes comes not from the absence of no, but from the presence of purpose. It's not about availability. It's about impact. Think of it this way. A laser is just focused light, but by concentrating its energy on a single point, it can cut through steel. Your yes works the same way. The more focused it is, the more powerful its impact. When you say yes purposefully, you bring your full energy, you create genuine value, you maintain enthusiasm, you sustain commitment. Your yes should be intentional, not reactive energizing, not depleting strategic, not scattered impactful, not merely active. Remember, the goal isn't to find more ways to say yes, it's to make your yes matter more. It's about creating impact, not just activity, because a life of purpose isn't built on how many things you do, but on how meaningfully you do them. A purposeful yes isn't just an agreement, it's a commitment to bring your best self to something. That matters. Choose these moments wisely, engage in them fully, and watch how your impact grows through the power of focused commitment. In a memorable consultation with a brilliant artist in Montreal, she shared something that struck me deeply. "I finally finished my best work yet," she said, "but to do it, I had to let people think I was selfish, uncaring, even arrogant. I had to choose between being understood and being effective." Here's what most people don't understand. The fear of being misunderstood keeps more people from maintaining healthy boundaries than almost any other factor. We'll often sacrifice our well-being, our purpose, and our peace of mind just to avoid having others think poorly of us. I've spent years studying how successful people navigate this challenge, and I've noticed something fascinating. Those who make the biggest impact are often those most willing to be temporarily misunderstood. They've learned that meaningful work often requires unpopular boundaries. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how innovators, artists, and transformative leaders are often criticized for the very choices that later prove essential to their success? Their boundaries weren't popular, but they were necessary. Consider these common misunderstandings about people with strong boundaries. They're selfish. They don't care about others. They're not team players. They think they're better than everyone else. They're antisocial. These interpretations say more about the observer's expectations than about the boundary setter's character. I remember working with a researcher who made breakthrough discoveries in her field. The hardest part wasn't the work itself, she told me. It was disappointing people who couldn't understand why I needed such long periods of uninterrupted time. They took it personally. Here's a powerful truth. Every significant achievement in history required someone to be willing to be misunderstood. The Wright brothers were seen as crazy. Einstein was considered antisocial. Marie Curie was called obsessive. Their boundaries weren't popular, but they were necessary. Think about the nature of misunderstanding. It's often temporary. Understanding usually follows results. Time validates necessary boundaries. Achievement explains previous choices. Impact justifies past decisions. It's rarely universal. Some people will understand, key supporters often emerge. Like-minded individuals resonate. Truth eventually surfaces. It's sometimes inevitable. Innovation requires new patterns. Growth demands change. Purpose often looks peculiar. Excellence needs space. I worked with a CEO who transformed her company by implementing strict boundaries around her time and attention. For the first 6 months, people thought I'd lost my mind, she said. Now they're implementing the same boundaries themselves because they've seen the results. Here's something crucial to understand. The discomfort of being misunderstood is almost always temporary, but the cost of abandoning necessary boundaries is permanent. Consider these common scenarios of necessary misunderstanding. Creative work, needing solitude for deep work, protecting creative energy, maintaining focus, periods, honoring inspiration timing, leadership decisions, making unpopular choices, maintaining strategic focus, protecting team boundaries, implementing necessary, change, personal growth, changing old patterns, breaking familiar cycles, establishing new standards, growing beyond comfort zones. Remember this principle. Your boundaries aren't meant to be popular, they're meant to be effective. They're tools for impact, not instruments of popularity. The courage to be misunderstood requires clear purpose, knowing your why, understanding your mission, recognizing your unique contribution, maintaining focus on goals, inner security, trusting your judgment, maintaining self-respect, accepting temporary criticism, standing firm in decisions, long-term perspective, seeing beyond immediate reactions, focusing on ultimate impact, trusting the process. Maintaining strategic vision, because here's the ultimate truth. The people who change the world are almost always misunderstood along the way. It's not because they're wrong, it's because they're doing something new. Think of it this way. Every time you set a boundary that others don't understand, you're not just protecting your time or energy, you're declaring your purpose. You're saying, this matters enough to me to risk your disapproval. The freedom in being misunderstood includes liberation from explanation. No need to justify every choice. Freedom from constant defense. Release from others' approval. Peace with your decisions. Focus on purpose. Energy for what matters. Clarity of mission. Undiluted effort. Pure intention. Authentic expression. True to your vision, aligned with values, genuine in approach, consistent with purpose. Remember, every significant contribution to human progress required someone to be willing to be misunderstood. Your boundaries might make you temporarily unpopular, but they might also be exactly what you need to make your unique contribution. When you feel the pressure of others' misunderstanding, ask yourself what matters more, their immediate understanding or my ultimate impact. Am I willing to be temporarily misunderstood to be ultimately effective? What's the real cost of abandoning necessary boundaries? What might be possible if I accept this misunderstanding as part of my path? Your boundaries aren't just about protection, they're about purpose. And sometimes purpose requires the courage to be misunderstood. It requires the strength to say, I know this doesn't make sense to you right now, but I trust my path. Because in the end, it's not about being understood by everyone, it's about being effective in your purpose. It's about maintaining the boundaries necessary for your unique contribution, even when others don't yet understand why. At a seminar in London, a participant had an insight that silenced the entire room. I've just realized, she said, that I'm not actually afraid of saying no. I'm afraid of who I am without everyone's approval. In that moment, she touched the core truth of boundary setting. It's not just about changing behavior, it's about transforming identity. Here's what most people don't understand. The journey of setting boundaries is ultimately a journey of becoming. It's not just about learning new skills, it's about evolving into someone who doesn't need constant approval to feel worthy. I've spent decades studying personal transformation, and I've noticed something remarkable. The most profound changes in boundary setting don't come from new techniques or strategies. They come from a fundamental shift in how people see themselves. Let me ask you this. Who would you be if you no longer needed everyone to like you? What would become possible if your sense of worth came from within, rather than from others' approval? Consider this story. I worked with a highly successful physician who struggled with boundaries despite her remarkable achievements. I realized, she told me, that I was still operating from my childhood identity, the good girl who never disappoints anyone. My entire career success couldn't override that basic programming. The transformation from people pleaser to boundary holder involves several key shifts. Identity shift from I am what I do for others to I am who I am, independent of others' reactions. Worth shift from my value comes from pleasing others to my value is inherent and unchanging. Purpose shift from my role is to make others happy to my role is to be authentic and effective. I remember working with a business leader who made a profound discovery. I thought setting boundaries would make me less effective in relationships. Instead, it made me more real, more present, and, paradoxically, more connected. Here's a powerful truth. The need to please isn't really about being kind. It's about being safe. It's a survival strategy we learned early in life that no longer serves our adult purpose. The evolution beyond people-pleasing involves understanding the origin story. Early survival strategies, learned patterns of worth, childhood adaptations, historical context, the current reality, adult capabilities. True relationship needs actual consequences. Present context, the new identity, self-validated worth, internal approval system, authentic expression, purpose-driven choices. Think of it as upgrading your operating system. The old program of please others to be safe gets replaced with be authentic to be effective. Here's something crucial to understand. This transformation isn't about becoming less caring. It's about becoming more authentic. It's about moving from reflexive pleasing to conscious choosing. The characteristics of this new identity include internal reference point self-trust as primary guide, values-based decisions, inner wisdom, recognition, personal truth alignment, authentic presence, genuine interactions, real responses, true expression, honest engagement, purpose-driven choice, strategic decisions, intentional commitments, meaningful engagement, purposeful action. Remember this principle. Your worth isn't earned through endless giving. It's expressed through authentic being. The stages of this evolution typically include awareness, recognizing patterns, understanding origins, seeing costs, identifying triggers, experimentation, testing, new responses, trying different approaches, exploring boundaries, practicing authenticity. Integration, embodying new identity, living from authenticity. Maintaining boundaries naturally, being without pleasing. Because here's the ultimate truth. The most powerful boundaries aren't maintained through constant vigilance. They flow naturally, from a transformed sense of self. Think of it this way. When you know who you are and what you're here for, boundaries become less about saying no to others and more about saying yes to your purpose. The markers of this transformation include from external to internal validation. Self-trust grows stronger. Others' opinions matter less. Internal guidance strengthens. Personal truth guides. From reactive to creative choices become conscious. Responses become intentional. Actions align with purpose. Decisions serve vision. From pleasing to purposeful focus shifts to impact energy aligns with values. Time serves mission. Relationships deepen through authenticity. Remember, this isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's about letting go of the protective masks of people-pleasing and allowing your authentic self to emerge. Your transformation might look like feeling peaceful instead of guilty when saying no, choosing based on purpose rather than pressure, responding from truth rather than fear, living from authenticity rather than anxiety. The practices that support this new identity, self-trust building, honoring inner wisdom, following through on commitments to self, validating personal experience, trusting personal judgment, purpose alignment, regular purpose review, value-based decisions, mission-driven choices, impact-focused action, authentic expression, honest communication, real responses, true presence, genuine connection. Because in the end, the greatest gift you can give others isn't your endless availability, it's your authentic presence. It's not your constant yes, it's your honest engagement. It's not your perpetual pleasing, it's your genuine being. Your boundaries aren't just protecting your time and energy anymore, they're expressing your truth. They're not walls to keep others out. They're declarations of who you are and what you're here for. This is the ultimate freedom, not needing to please because you're secure in who you are, not fearing others' reactions because you're grounded in your truth, not seeking constant approval because you know your worth. Welcome to your authentic self. Welcome home.